interfere in matters affecting internal parliamentary practice. The court, yes, has said it has the power to do that so long as the matter violates the Constitution. However, if the matter doesn't violate the Constitution, then Parliament has virtually unrestrained power or authority to regulate itself internally. And so, what constitutes who can vote? Parliamentary practice and procedure. The issue of the Hansard, the issues of standing orders, rather, and the various practices within Parliament. The court says it will not interfere as long as there is no express violation of the Constitution. So these are the caveats that need clarified. On the question of whether the decision of the court itself is one that can be found plausible. Again, I need to state at the outset that in the absence of the opinion of the court, I really cannot rationalize whether or not it is a good or bad decision. I'm not in a position at this stage. So I will express just my general opinion.
Okay.
Therefore, it's not an opinion that affects the propriety or otherwise of the decision because I haven't seen the detail of the decision yet. I think there are issues of principle that on both sides of the spectrum one can find some problems with. The first one, if you allow the Speaker of Parliament to vote, the difficulty with that is that the Speaker, or rather the Deputy Speaker, when presiding as Speaker, is supposed to be a non-partisan, neutral president presiding over the process. If the Deputy Speaker acting as Speaker therefore votes, he may be affected by his predetermined electoral preference or choice, i.e., because he is going to be part of the decision-making process, because he's going to ultimately exercise his votes and therefore his position on an issue, he may be affected by that consideration of which side of the divide is going to vote for. There may therefore be unfair and sometimes unfortunate accusations of him preferring one side of the divide to the other in terms of the decision. And we all know the history of speakers having been accused of pretending not to have seen particular hands up or otherwise. So those are problems or problematic aspects that need to be considered. If you allow the Speaker to vote, he may have his electoral preference affecting the decision-making process, and therefore his non-partisan, neutral presidency, so to speak, as far as presiding over the principles are concerned. If you do not allow him to vote, there are equally problems. The problems with that is that the Speaker, Deputy Speaker acting as a Speaker, represents a constituency.
Okay.
And his representation of the constituency can never cease nor be violated. Therefore, if at any given point in time, because of administrative processes within Parliament, his representation is affected by reason of which he doesn't exercise his electoral right to represent his people within Parliament and the decision-making process, that constituency would have been suspended for the period for which he was Deputy Speaker. Now, under the Constitution, that is a direct violation of his representation. So there are conflicting positions on this, and the problem, it appears, goes ultimately down to the Constitution. And it seems to me that it is one area that careful deliberation or attention may not have been given to, and we are seeing the fallout or consequences of this stage.
When you say the problem goes down to the Constitution, what is the problem with the Constitution when it comes to that particular provision?
Well, I've already just indicated, because the Constitution doesn't seem to contemplate the consequences of making the Deputy Speaker a Speaker in particular decision-making processes. The Constitution just contemplated the possibility that the Speaker would be absent from Ghana or the Speaker would not be able to perform his functions. And then the Deputy Speaker, who is a representative of the constituency, will then step in his shoes. The constitutional framers appear to have just focused on his role, administrative role, of representing the Deputy Speaker, of representing the Speaker, without considering the fallout or the consequences. And in this case, the fallout or the consequences are that, one, his neutral chairmanship, so to speak, and therefore presiding over a deliberation process. We did not consider how, if we make him a speaker who can vote, how that can affect the whole process and therefore his own neutrality, so to speak. And the constitutional framework did not equally also contribute in this case. If you allow him, or rather, if you prevent him from voting, how this can therefore affect his representation of a particular constituency. So seems that there are issues on both sides of the divide, and these are problematic circumstances.
Do you think the Supreme Court's ruling resolves this issue once and for all?
Like I said, I haven't seen the decision. The opinion hasn't yet been issued. We have just had the decision announced, but not the opinion itself. So, in the absence of the decision itself, the opinion is all being given. It is prejudicial. One is prejudging, and so to speak, second guessing the court in terms of the reasons they are going to give for this. Now we just know that the court has decided in one direction and not the other, and in the absence of that, we can only speculate. And it's not an exercise that we typically do in the circumstances of our profession.
All right, Professor Kofi Abochi, thank you very much for joining us. I know that you have other things to do, but decided to share your views on this particular issue. We're very grateful to you. But let's still stay on the phone because we have Kofi Bentil joining us, Vice President of Imani Africa, joining us. He'll be telling us what his take also is on this particular issue. He's been raising other issues when it comes to this. Kofi, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Winston.
Great. So, Kofi, what do you make of the ruling by the Supreme Court?
Well, in the first place, I think we all have to agree that when we have controversies like this in this country, the proper thing is for us to allow the Supreme Court to rule, no matter how the outcome is or how people take it. So I like to look at the broad view that instead of us going through many months of arguing, this thing should have gone to the Supreme Court quicker. Now, when the Supreme Court rules also, what we must understand is that nobody's ruling, including the Supreme Court's ruling, is about critique. We will not insult them, but it is okay to critique the ruling. Because sometimes Supreme Courts have ruled and other Supreme Courts have overruled earlier rulings. So that being said, let's come to the specific issue. I think something is being missed here.
Okay, what's that?
For those who are saying that the Supreme Court is interfering in the process of Parliament, they are missing the point that it is true that Parliament is a master of its own procedures. But Parliament cannot make procedure which is unconstitutional. The fact that you're a master of your own processes, you decide how you do things in the House, does not mean you can do things that are unconstitutional. And it is the Supreme Court that determines whether something is constitutional or not. An example is to say you are the head of your house, and so you wake up every day and beat your children. Yes, you are the head of your house, but you cannot choose to beat your children every day. And if you do, the police will come from outside your house and determine what you do in your house. So it's important that the Supreme Court said first that this act was unconstitutional. To take the vote from the member was unconstitutional. With that basis, they proceeded to strike it out. And without that, you can say they are meddling in the affairs of Parliament. But if
Why do you disagree?
taking the vote from a member who assumes other privileges is unconstitutional. Let me repeat. Every member has a vote. You came there to represent your constituency. It does not entitle you to special privileges in Parliament. It does not entitle you to the second deputy speaker. And those positions come with extra perks and privileges and responsibilities. So if you elect or you are chosen and you accept to take on those extra privileges and those perks and other things, which require you to do things differently, then it stands to reason that you cannot represent your people ordinarily and still exercise those privileges. And you have the prerogative not to accept it. So for me, to say that it is unconstitutional for a member to lose their vote because they become deputy speaker and have to be a neutral arbiter, I disagree. If those who are against this ruling are attacking the constitutionality of it, I won't have a problem. But where they say it is an interference in Parliament's process, I have a problem. It's a bit nuanced, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. Kofi Abochi's just made the point that he thinks that the problem itself is with the Constitution. Because if you're looking at, Article 104, it says, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters of Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all members of Parliament present. The Speaker shall have neither an original or casting vote, where the votes. So that's the point. Now it says the Speaker. He says he's a deputy speaker. So the Speaker is not a member of Parliament, and that's simply put, cannot vote. But here, no reference is made to a deputy speaker. And so in this case, can it then be interpreted to mean a deputy speaker or the one in the chair when presiding cannot vote?
Well, honestly, I think when you have some of these interpretation problems, you look to other authorities. And the greatest authority on these things is Eskime. And if you read Eskime, the Parliamentary Procedure Book, it is clear. Listen, it says member. A member means an ordinary member. So an ordinary member in the normal course of their duties has a vote. But when a member assumes a parliamentary position beyond what they were voted to come and do, which is a privilege accorded within Parliament, and which privilege requires you to act as a neutral arbiter, and for which you take certain perks, you cannot keep what you are holding and also take what you are getting. So that for me, there's no problem. There's no problem because you can remain a member and keep your vote. But if you move from a member to what is essentially a super member, then you can return the vote. And if we are in doubt, let's look at the people who started this thing. Read Estimate. It is very clear. Okay? Now, that is why I say it is not unconstitutional for somebody who elects to move beyond his ordinary membership to a deputy speakership, give up his vote, at least for the period that he is deputy speaker. Note that Parliament can actually elect a member of Parliament to be speaker.
Yes.
But immediately they elect a member to be speaker, that speaker relinquishes his seat. And then you have to have a by-election. To that extent, therefore, if the deputy speakers were permanent, we would have to do re-elections also in their constituencies. But because they are temporary, for the period that they are deputy speakers, they lose the vote. When they return, they take the vote. I don't see how you can have somebody being a neutral arbiter moderating a debate, and then later he gets down to come and vote one way or the other.
Yeah, but he represents a people.
Speakers have power.
Yes, Kofi, he represents a constituency. Those people deserve to be heard.
Yes.
So,
as an ordinary member, when he goes to become deputy speaker, he is not representing his constituency. He has elected to take a parliamentary position. At that point, he is not properly so-called an ordinary member of Parliament. So the point is simple. You can choose to represent your constituency by remaining an ordinary member. But when you become the speaker, you are taken on a parliamentary position.
Yes,
you have elected.
Yeah, but if you
not
look
to represent your constituency, but for that small period to do a work for Parliament.
Well, if you look at Article 96.1, which says there shall be 2 deputy speakers of Parliament, it says who shall be elected by members of Parliament from among the members of Parliament, and both of whom shall not be members of the same political party. The law says they should be members of Parliament. So they are members of Parliament.
Yes.
And if they are members of Parliament, why can't they vote? Because members of Parliament should vote.
Because deputy speakers are a different class of parliamentarians. Otherwise, they will not also be elected. Now, when you are going to be elected, you are first nominated. You understand the job and what it requires you to do and what it requires you to get, and then what it requires you to give up. And you can actually decline the nomination. You can elect not to become deputy speaker. I remember very vividly on the day that they were being elected, I was telling somebody that it would be strategically wrong for NPP to take that position because they will lose a vote if their person ascends. Of course, there's a difficulty because one has to come from here, one has to come from here. But I could see that problem. Okay, so for me, once you choose to take the position, you have to take what comes with the position. I hold the view that going forward, we may have to use senior officers of parliament for some of these things if members want to retain their vote. For the simple reason that when somebody ascends to the deputy speaker position, they have sufficient power to determine how a vote goes. You remember that recently, Joy99.7FM overruled the speaker's decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so clearly that kind of decision or that kind of action cannot be said not to have been informed by his partisan inclinations.
So let's look at this other scenario, Kofi. So you have a case, for instance. You have a loan agreement for, say, a facility for the people of Asante Bekwai. He's member of parliament for Bekwai, First Deputy Speaker Joy99.7FM. He's the one presiding. It has to be put to a vote. Now, the people of Bekwai have sent him there to go and be their representative. Here is a facility coming to the people of Bekwai, and he has to vote. Are you saying under the circumstances, just because he's in the seat, even though he's member of parliament representing the people of Bekwai, who in this case need this facility, he cannot vote and should not vote?
So what I'm saying is, if he wanted to represent his people and just vote, then he should not go and be the deputy on that day. He was voted for by his people not to become deputy speaker, but to become a parliamentarian for them. He elects to take a parliamentary job, which comes with perks, rights, responsibilities, and also some of these conditions. So on that day when he feels very strongly about being a member of parliament, he should just be a member of parliament.
But the law says deputy speaker should be members of parliament. Through no fault of his, he's become a deputy speaker. His caucus has nominated him. He's been voted for. But his people still demand representation. And here's a project that concerns them. Why shouldn't he vote?
I've explained it. But the point I'm making is, for me, that is where the issue is with the Constitution. The speaker cannot be a member. If we think that this voting thing is going to be a problem, and it will be a problem, we should consider having deputy speakers who may not necessarily be members of parliament. There are very senior clerks and other persons there who really, I think, can do the work. And note that ours is a hybrid. Okay, we have devised a system, okay, between the English and other systems. So nothing stops us if we think this is a critical issue. And I bet you it is critical. From evolving this arrangement where we can have a senior clerk of parliament or somebody close preside. So members of parliament will be members of parliament. Because I really believe that having the person who has to moderate the debate with power to overrule, power to, see people and allow them to speak, power to stop other people's phones, power to direct the debate. If that person has a vested interest, nobody should tell you that he will not be neutral.
Just by way of clarification.
Some people can be impartial. Some people can have a position, but they can still be objective. But you cannot assume that for everybody. And I said just recently, the speaker, the substantive speaker, had cause to publicly rebuke Joy99.7FM. And the speaker felt that he was acting partisanly by overruling him. I think these things are going to get worse if this is going to be allowed, where you can come and debate. You can come and, when you finish, you go back and go and vote. You can come and moderate. When you finish, you go back and go and vote. I think we are deluding ourselves by thinking that we will get through this without any strife. I think this formula will create more problems.
Just by way of clarification,
want to vote, they should remain members.
Just by way of clarification, are you suggesting that going forward, you should think of amending the Constitution so deputy speakers will not be members of parliament?
Yes, I think we should amend the Constitution for a number of things. For instance, ministers should not come from parliament. That is the real problem with the separation of powers. And I think when we amend the Constitution, knowing we have this kind of problem, and by the way, Ghanaians want parliament to be evenly split, because that is where you get proper debates. That is where you get policies and things that government brings scrutinized properly. So this is a good thing. And if this is going to continue, then we have to resolve this issue of deputy speakers voting. And I think if we are going to amend the constitution, we might as well amend it so that a senior member who is not a parliamentarian, a senior clerk or somebody, can preside. Why not?
Hi, Kofi, this is Kojo.
Yes, Kojo.
Yeah, so one of the main reasons you've put forward why you think it's not a good idea for a member of parliament to, in the capacity of a deputy speaker, to vote is that it creates a certain, or it allows for a certain bias. So, for example, if the speaker is away, the deputy is sitting in, and there is an issue on which the floor is split on partisan lines, and he, as the sitting speaker at the time, or the deputy speaker who is sitting, has all that power that you described, the power to sway the cause of the vote, and sway the debate and so forth. He has all that power, and then he also votes. That is unfair bias. But it occurs to me that whether he votes or not, he can still abuse that power in favor of his party. So removing the vote doesn't create any extra fairness, does it?
But it improves the fairness. The fact that you can't have it all does not mean you cannot have some. I agree with you that once he sits there, he can sway the debate, he can move it in a certain way. And I said recently we had a situation where Ozewusu overruled the substantive speaker. Now, if he has that power, and on top of that you add a vote, you are creating worse problems. So for me, I think it is right that if he's going to take that power, which his people in Bekwai did not give him, then you should give up that. Which is also why I'm saying, knowing the things you are saying and the things I am saying, why don't we, in amending the constitution, say that parliamentarians should remain parliamentarians since they want to represent their people so badly and retain their vote at all times? They should just do that. If the speaker is not available, the senior-most clerk of parliament should preside. Why not?
So as things stand, the Supreme Court has interpreted the Constitution to say that the deputy speaker can vote. We're hearing minority members, suggesting they will not go by the Supreme Court's ruling. Now, you are someone who doesn't agree with the Supreme Court's ruling, but do you agree with the minority's stance that they will not go by it?
I don't agree with the minority. I accept the Supreme Court's ruling, but I don't agree with it. I accept it because it is their proper place to determine these matters. I don't agree with it because they are saying if you become deputy speaker and assume extra powers, you should still keep your vote. So that I disagree with. The minority members are seeing the inherent problems that will be caused and the disadvantages that will be visited on them. And that is why they are resisting. And I'm taking pains to pass these issues and separate them. So what I'm saying is the problem is inherent in the effect of the ruling. So I can understand what the minority is saying. But I disagree with them if they say they are not going to accept. We need to keep our Supreme Court sacrosanct. Let us criticize them. Somebody might even go for a review and make good arguments. That is what civilized people do. But we cannot say that when the Supreme Court has ruled, we will say we won't obey it and resort to anarchy. That is wrong. So I expect that somebody should go for a review. And whatever it is, whether the review works or it doesn't work, this is one other reason why we need to get down to this constitutional review issue and deal with it. Our constitution is almost 30 years old. It is breaking at the seams. It is showing its inadequacies. It is time for us to deal with those inadequacies and fashion a better constitution so that we don't end up crashing the Fourth Republic.
All right, Kofi Bento, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Winston.
Right, so that's Kofi Bento sharing his views with us. Earlier, you heard from Professor Kofi Abochi. Raymond Akwa is also here. And Professor Abochi has made the point. He looked at it from both sides. So he talked about how, because he's not seen, the reasons haven't been given, he wouldn't want to go into it. He takes it from both sides. He talks about the fact that the person is a representative of a constituency. So in that case, you expect the person to have a vote. However, when you are presiding also, can it be said that you should maintain your vote when you become speaker in the absence of the speaker? He says all this boils down to a problem with our constitution. We did not envisage that we may have this situation after some years.
The difficulty was that, at some point we experimented with the parliamentary system. Then we almost switched to the presidential system. That means we've gone full hog on both sides. The wisdom behind our current constitution was that let's mix them. So a hybrid system to function properly. So when it comes to the presidential part, you see how powerful our president is, which would have been the case in the parliamentary system. Yeah. And when it comes to the parliament side, we actually give parliament the appearance of independence or the things that a parliamentary system will actually promote. The difficulty is promoted now because the things we expected would be resolved by compromise, consensus building, and all of that are not being resolved through those modes because of the current stakes in the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Regardless, if that had not happened, because, for example, ideally, the expectation is that a speaker sitting in there will be an independent umpire who would actually rule according to conscience and all of the rules that he knows best and will apply them. But the partisan nature of the current parliament makes it difficult for many of those things to happen. I agree with the thinking that maybe we need to look at our current constitution. But there's an Edmund Burke old quote that says that regardless of what you put in your written or unwritten constitution, if people want to abuse it, misapply it, and misconstrue it, they'll still do so. The crux of it is how people are given the opportunity to do so when they have the opportunity to do that. Because and it makes sense for anybody to presume that the person chairing will have a level of independence. In fact, even in the UK, the rule that a speaker's vote in a tie, he doesn't vote. Vote in a tie should not change the status quo. It should only so far as it gets to a tie, the speaker would actually maintain the status quo. He will vote to actually return it to what's supposed to be and not make any change to it. It was just one speaker's decision, and it became a convention passed on over the period. So a system that was developed over the period, they found it reasonable that a speaker should be seen to be that independent. In fact, they even insist that that speaker should not belong to any political party. So Becker had to resign from his political party when he became speaker, even though he was a member of parliament. His deputies were not required to resign from their political parties, but the appearance of independence was expected of them. That is the concept. If we are minded that the job of the speaker or anybody in parliament is the national interest, some of these conversations will not crop up. It is because of the stakes in parliament today, and that's what we cannot dismiss. That's why these are bigger issues that ought to be dealt with. We can reform our constitution. We can put in new rules, but no constitution anticipates all happenings. That's why Supreme Courts fill in. They fill in the loopholes. They actually give rulings to make sure that all the other loopholes are dealt with properly. I do not foresee a change in these rules happening. In any case, the parliament has powers. They can actually pass new laws and changing the current rules that, and if it's an entrenched provision, they can push for us to go into what they call a vote on that particular matter. So, in all fairness, the best way to deal with some of these issues has been through following convention, making sure that the established rules that you've worked with over the period, which has worked for you, continues, except when partisanship becomes the problem. And we can deal with partisanship if we act in the interest of the nation. I think that's ultimate.
What do you guys think about that? Very quickly, what do you guys think about this? What is often said by those who argue in favor of the deputy speaker voting, when they say that, look, he represents a constituency. That constituency should not be disenfranchised on any matter. But Professor Kwekwaza, I think, is the one who made the point first that, look, there are circumstances under which an MP cannot vote. Yeah. So, for example, you're a lawyer, you're an MP and a lawyer, your law firm is representing a company whose contract is now being considered by Parliament. This is something that affects you directly, therefore you cannot vote. These are things that will come up every now and then. So there could be instances where even though you are the member of Parliament for, say, Bekwai, and the matter affects Bekwai, you may not be allowed to vote. There are those occasions when your vote is just not permissible for the sake of fairness. Because when you are sitting in that seat, the power that you wield Actually, and that power is also wielded on behalf of your constituents.
That's true.
That has more weight than one vote. So, in essence, your constituents are not
And you
disenfranchised.
make some determinations that are way bigger than even a
Thank
single
you.
vote in any case.
So, and if you are doing that on behalf of your constituents, then they are not disenfranchised in the matter.
Kojo, if every parliamentarian and the leadership feel that their job is only to serve Ghana, their job, because constituencies constitute Ghana, and that everything they are doing in parliament is in the interest of the state, this conversation will not even come up in the first place.
Well, so that was big stories here on the Super Morning Show on Joy 99.7 FM. What are your own thoughts? I mean, I'd love to hear from you. You've heard from Professor Ernest Kofi Abuchi, has looked at the issues from both sides and has talked about the challenges with the constitutional provision itself. What is your own take? Why don't you join us on Twitter using the hashtag JoySMS? Big stories here on the Super Morning Show, brought to us by Vodafone, Further Together, and Latest Phone, your partner for life.
Now, the Vodafone Air Corso promotion is still on. Charlie, people are still winning cash, airtime, and data. So don't be left out. Receive red coins whenever you top up on Vodafone and claim your share of the 2 million Ghana cedis worth of prizes in cash, airtime, and data while the promotion is still on. Just dial *533# or go to the My Vodafone app. I was going to say My Joy Online there.
Yeah. Don't do that.
Go to the My Vodafone app to check your accumulated red coins or redeem your rewards. No sign-on is required. Just top up, receive your red coins and dial *533# or go to the My Vodafone app to exchange your red coins for cash anytime. Airtime or data. Vodafone Air Corso promo. No promo draws. Vodafone Air Corso promo. Everyone is a winner. Terms and conditions apply. Vodafone, Further Together.
And the SEMA Finance Leadership Program is a competency-based digital learning experience and your pathway to earn the Distinguished Chartered Institute of Management Accountants professional qualification. Now, SEMA is the most relevant global finance qualification for a career in business. Log on to enroll.cgma.org to determine your exemption and entry points. MBA holders will be exempted from 11 papers and all exemptions are free. Call or WhatsApp 0268128789 or 0268128789. Email accra@aicpa-sima.com. SEMA Finance Leadership Program, be the future of finance.
Same number.
Yeah.
Get the right assist for the perfect hat trick when you sign up for the ABSA Assure account. Enjoy a wide range of banking services, personal accident insurance, and finally, travel insurance all at a monthly flat rate. Go to the nearest ABSA branch to sign up now for the ABSA Assure account. Terms and conditions apply. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA, the official African banking partner of the Premier League. Go to absa.com.gh/Premier League for further details.
Coming up,
the price of a trip of sand last December was 250 cedis. Now the price has jumped to 400 cedis. Aside that, fuel costs 600 cedis. To make a trip of sand, you should be paying 1,000 cedis.